Okay, after 3 hours of discussing Fast and the Furious movies, we go on to our podcast video discussion, and we are at episode 10 of Casual Discussions with the Boys. And for this one, we're still in our phase 2 journey, and we're looking at Guardians of the Galaxy. Start as we usually do, boys. What were initial thoughts when seeing this movie for the first time? Caleb, and then Josh, and then David.
Thank you for managing that well. I actually, surprisingly, I didn't see this movie at the cinema. Which
you didn't see many of Phase 2.
No, I didn't. Besides Captain America and Ultron, I think were the only two that I saw at the cinema. But yeah, I didn't watch it at the cinema, not because I didn't care, or because maybe it was just at a time when I was busy and I didn't go to the cinemas that much. I don't really know. But I'm, as you boys know, I'm not a big, opposite to Malika, I'm not a big galactic person. Like I don't love movies like Star Trek. I haven't watched any of the Star Wars movies. People can roast me in the comments for that later. But I don't get into that sort of movies really. So the idea of this movie didn't appeal to me whatsoever. Like it was not good at all. So, but when it came out later on, like, I don't know, it was on Netflix, I think, before it moved to Disney Plus. So I probably watched it 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I watched it before Infinity War, either way. So I watched it before that. But when I watched it, like, as you know, if you go back and look at my list of top Marvel movies that we have on our Facebook page, quick plug, there's a reason it's pretty high in my list of top movies, because I think this movie does something that not a lot of movies did at this stage, which was combine a Marvel character or storyline that not a lot of people knew about, and then made it completely different to every other movie that's been made, but did it in its own lane. It was totally different. It was totally unique. I also love Chris Pratt. Like, I love him from Parks and Recreation. I was a big fan, and so like it's interesting that I didn't watch it at the time because I love Chris Pratt. But watching it now, it's like they did something with a character that was very unique. And I think Chris Pratt, interestingly, has like been one of the few Marvel characters that have done Marvel well, but also done a lot of stuff outside of that since making Guardians. Like, he's done a lot of other movies. He's been the face of Jurassic World, all that sort of stuff. But I don't know, overall, I think when you first watch the movie and you have that scene where he lands on Morag after he gets abducted on Earth, lands on Morag, he does the whole, like, you think it starts off like every other Marvel movie. So he's walking through Morag and you think it's going to be this intense like throwdown, and then he pulls out I don't know what's is it a Walkman or a tape? It's a Walkman, right?
Oh yeah, the cassette player.
No, it's a cassette
player.
Yeah.
Pulls out, so throwback, pulls out the cassette player, plays a song, and then as the song hits, the big Guardians of the Galaxy title screen comes up. Yeah. It was kind of similar to the Cap movie, that like at that point you're like, okay, this is going to be a very different Marvel movie. Like, you knew when that happened, that scene happened, it was like, okay, this is going to be very different. So look, I think that overall it was great. I think it introduced us, and we have to add bonus points to that. It introduced us to Thanos, the actual Thanos, like Josh Brolin Thanos, and introduced us to Ronan the Accuser, which comes up a lot later. And so that was great. I think overall, I think my impressions of it is that it was a great movie. Wouldn't crack probably my top 3, but like it's in the top 10 easily. I don't know where I placed it on the list, but yeah.
For some reason, when you were introducing Thanos and you said Josh, I was trying to think of the last name, and the first name that came to mind was Groban.
the guy,
opera singer.
yeah, the singer.
I was like, oh yeah, Josh Groban, it's Thanos.
You raise me up.
Whenever I think of Josh Groban, I don't think of him opera. I think of him off The Office. You know how he was
And his brother.
from The Office, and like to me, when you say Josh Groban, it's like, oh yeah, Josh Groban from The Office. It's like the poor guy probably has so many people that only know him from The Office.
Also, and so
Josh Groban, who made the Avengers.
back to this, I sort of similar to what Chance was saying. Coming into this movie, I had no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy were at all. Like, I sort of knew the mainstream Marvel heroes, but when you said Guardians of the Galaxy, the only thing that I recognized was the Marvel symbol, I guess. So I was a big, and still am, like, I'm a bit of a sci-fi nerd. In contrast, I had watched a lot of the Star Trek, and Stargate, and Star Wars, and all of that kind of stuff. As I was younger with my dad, or when I was younger with my dad, and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of side attracted me into it as well. But I think I just sort of was riding the hype train a little bit with all the Marvel movies that were coming out. And when I watched it, like, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it just made me want to know more about the sort of wider universe, like the wider Marvel universe. Because I think this movie touches on a lot of stuff really lightly. Like you had the Celestials?
Yeah.
Who's like that one shot where they're just like, he's sort of mentioned when they're talking about the stone and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well,
and then the big skull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there's so much that's touched on here that some of it's already been covered. Some of it, I think, they're moving into it with this next phase. So it just made me want to explore a lot more. And I think this movie did, like Chance was saying, did that really well. It introduced us and it really made us intrigued about sort of everything else that's going on. And again, I think for me, the best part about this movie was the soundtrack. Like, I loved their decisions and their choices. And I think it was really different in comparison to some of the other movies, because it felt like for this, the soundtrack was like actually a major part of their decision making in how they wanted to tell the story and how they wanted you to feel while watching the movie. But yeah, I mean, initial thoughts is, yeah, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it.
David.
Okay, well, before I get started, I got two things I got to say. So the first one is to you, Caleb.
Yeah.
So you said you didn't watch this movie in the movies. Now,
yeah.
I remember, I have one of those weird memories. I remember after I saw the movie in the movies, messaging you and be like, dude, you know, it was a good movie and all that. And I was telling you, so you liked it. And the whole time I was thinking, Caleb has seen this movie. So I got to prove to him how. But now I'm starting to think maybe you hadn't seen the movie, because you said you watched it when it was on DVD.
I wouldn't have watched it. I definitely didn't watch it at the cinemas because, well, I know. So for those that know us and our lives, fans of ours, whatever. Jared, my brother, who David, you also know, he loved it. He watched it at the cinemas. Yeah. So, but yeah, maybe I was just saying, did you love it? I don't really know. But
it's just funny because at the time I remember I was coming off the Marvel train. So I think I was trying to prove to you that I still liked Marvel, and I'm thinking like, oh, Caleb probably seen this movie 3 times. So it's like how many years later? I'm just learning that you actually hadn't seen the movie. So
David's actually just spoiling everything as he's messaging.
That's why I didn't have to watch it, because you just
like, I was just like, oh, it's just a great ending, bro.
It's a really in-depth description.
It's Josh Groban as Thanos.
And my second thing is, Josh, where have you been my whole life? I just found out you like Star Trek. I mean,
bro, I am a huge Star Trek, Stargate, all of that. Like, I burned through all of that with Dad when I was younger.
I'm learning so much through this podcast.
That's what this is about.
Yeah. But yeah, coming on to, so yeah, I went and saw Guardians, I remember in the Gala Cinema. I didn't know what to expect. Yeah.
Gala, respect.
Mate, got to like support the local cinema.
Popcorn drinking a lollipop for $7. Represent!
That was too much for me when I was 18.
It's still too much.
But yeah, I didn't know what to expect, because I remember like in legal studies, when I'm actually supposed to be studying law, my friend's like, oh, bro, they cast Bradley Cooper as the raccoon, and Vin Diesel's going to be the tree, and the guy from The Walking Dead's going to be a blue alien with a fin, and the big guy from Parks and Recreation, he's going to be like this buff dude, and the Avatar chick is going to be the green chick. And I'm just like, I don't know what to think of this movie. Like, and then it was like super ravey and all that. I'm like, all right, I got to go and see it. And look, I've enjoyed it a lot more as time's gone on. I enjoyed it when I saw it. I think this what got me back onto the Marvel train. I'm not in the camp of this is the best movie ever made, but I think it achieves what it needs to achieve. And what I liked about it, I think it's what I told Caleb at the time, besides telling him the whole ending and everything.
Thanks, bro. I loved it too. It was awesome.
Yeah. But what I liked about it was different to other sci-fi movies, as in it was like what Star Wars would have felt like when it first came out. Like, it gave me that feel of just being this very fun, very just, a bit campy, a bit light type of sci-fi film. Well, at the time, all the sci-fi films were dark and gritty and intense and, all that. Well, this one's like, let's just have some fun with it. So that's how I compared it at the time,
Yeah.
But
cool.
Come and get your love.
Exactly.
Which Star Wars movie are you talking about? Which one was fun?
I'll say New Hope's fun. I mean,
anyone with Jar Jar Binks, which is only one. I know that for a fact. And brilliant, the best one.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Did you have more?
One thing, when I walked out of the Guardians, I remember thinking about it, so I thought, I really want to watch Star Trek with someone, but I just have no one to watch it with. So that didn't happen, though.
Tune into our separate Star Trek podcast.
Yeah.
For my initial feels, I actually have this movie in my top 10, and I was surprised to see I put it above Avengers, like the first Avengers, which... yeah, kind of back and forth. But anyways, in regards to what I first thought when I saw it, yeah, I really enjoyed it too. As we've all said, it was a very different approach to the sci-fi genre. I'm pretty sure at this point, anything sci-fi had already been done. Like, how much more could they go on with? And then, James Gunn just introduces retro musics, jokes, and superhero genre on top of it. So it was definitely something new. My understanding of the Guardians at the time were they were just space police. Like, they go around, trouble would happen, and then they just deal with it. Whereas in this, they were kind of like reluctant to help. They had their own selfish things. So I like the idea that it was a bunch of misfits coming together and then forming this ragtag group of whatever they were. And I think what I respect about it is the fact that there was no movies prior to this one talking about their origins or anything. So off the bat, you just had backstories on whoever relevant at the time, Star-Lord, I guess, and certain other ones, but not too deep to make you lose interest, and just enough to keep the story going. So I did like that. And the retro aspect of it, I really enjoyed as well. So,
well, like, even with Gamora, right, you don't really see much of her backstory until, like, isn't it like way later on when they actually, I can't remember which movie it is, but
it's Infinity War. Yeah, you don't hear about it until Infinity War. Yeah,
where they show Thanos going to her home planet, right?
Yeah.
Like, even then, like, she sort of touches on what happens, but you don't see it until, like, essentially almost the whole end of this saga, which is wild.
I think I remember watching it. Like, I rewatched it a couple of days ago for the podcast. This is also talking about how my wife loves Captain America movies. This is probably the other one that is her favorite. So interestingly, like, she'll sit down and watch this one anytime. We watch it together. But one of the things that I appreciated heaps was, like, you get the opening scene, which I guess is really emotional and touching, with his mom and whatever, and how, his dad's an angel, but just watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2. He's not, he's a dickhead. And then we get that whole scene, and then he goes up into space. Can I just say I'm super thankful that we didn't get a whole, like, young Chris Pratt Star-Lord like montage crap. Like, I'm just so thankful that we just went from, like, that one scene to, like, him being Star-Lord. Like, we just didn't need it. Like, I think that's one thing that Marvel has done so well, even with, like, when we get into Tom Holland, Spider-Man, blah blah. Like, they kind of trust that, like, number one, if you like the characters, you're going to do research enough to know what their origin is. And number two, if you don't, you probably don't care that much, and you're probably going to the cinema so you can go hang out with your friends and have popcorn. And then, like, that's cool. So it's kind of like we don't need this, like, campy, annoying origin, like, teenage story, blah, blah, blah. We can just have, like, them in their element. Like, it's more, I think, what this movie did well and set other movies up in Marvel was we had origin stories of the group forming rather than origin stories of the individual, which I think worked really well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting you compared it to Spider-Man because, like, I think this set the tone for how they could easily just go straight into his story. Because Spider-Man's already well known, obviously, so there's not much they need to do there. But with these guys, I think none of us really knew anything about Guardians at all. Like, maybe Malika, because he's the comic book reader in the group, but like, I had no idea what I was walking into. So yeah, they did well in that aspect.
I feel like from what limited knowledge I know about the Guardians, I'm pretty sure the movies kind of defined where the Guardians of the Galaxy were going to go forward. Because like before then, they were like B-grade type characters.
Yeah.
And then the movie's like, all right, now we can actually like push them and make them into something.
What did we think of the casting for this movie? The choice of casting. We were talking earlier how some of the side characters, including the voices, were pretty big names.
Vin Diesel as Groot is perfect.
I think he really captures the emotion.
If anyone listening knows anybody from Disney or Marvel, I'll take 10 grand to say I am Groot. Like you're saying your budget's exploded at this point. You can do whatever you want. Like you don't have to pay him 54 mil. I'll do it for 10G.
Yeah. So on
like
that, we were looking up just before this, and apparently, I don't know how accurate it is, but Vin Diesel apparently made 54 million for this movie.
Does anybody know how much Bradley Cooper made for his work as Rocket? Because I just want to compare those two, like, and the effort that went into it.
I could be wrong.
They were both voice acting, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think Bradley Cooper's performance as Rocket in this movie inspired his movie A Star Is Born.
I don't know. Before Josh finishes looking that up, it wasn't until like David kind of touched on it when he said his friends were saying this when he was at school about, or who got casted. And it wasn't until I watched it this time that I was like, wow, like you didn't realize how obscure the casting was until like it's normal to us now because we've watched the movie. But like back in 2014, it was pretty weird. Like the casting choices were so odd. Like Zoe Saldana as Gamora was like again, she was kind of big from Avatar, but it was still like she was after Avatar, she'd done a lot more like obscure roles. Like she was kind of this like the acting of her is quite obscure, which now knowing what Gamora is like fits Gamora, but at the time it was a bit like, okay, this is weird. Chris Pratt was like a husky fat guy of Parks and Recreation who had never done
for this film.
Yeah, really toned. Who'd never done a leading role and also had never really done anything that wasn't like just him taking the piss out of himself. Like in Parks and Rec, he's like taking the Mickey out of himself, sort of. So like to cast him as like the leading man was like a big risk, in my opinion, at the time. Vin Diesel, I guess, I don't know, we discussed this before. I guess the reason they cast him and Bradley Cooper was because it got people to watch the movie because he was in it. Like, is in there like, oh, Vin Diesel's in this movie. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll watch it. I love Fast and Furious, or I love The Hangover, or I love like, all that sort of stuff. Like, I think that probably got people to watch the movie that wouldn't have watched it before. But yeah, I don't know. They're very interesting casting choices. So
yeah, I thought it was such a weird choice as well for them, for the actors to take on the roles that they did. Especially for me, Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, just because of the movies they usually do. And for them to go into Marvel just as voices, I was like, wait, what?
But even going on that, I'm pretty sure Vin Diesel went in to have an interview. I think there was talk of him playing like Black Bolt, the main guy in the Inhumans, or playing another role. So he actually come in, I think, to like get a starring role. So can you imagine like you go in, you're like, look, we could make you one of the big dudes like, Robert Downey Jr. and that. But listen, think about this. Tree, I am Groot.
54 million.
And that's all you need to ever say is, and you're a tree. Why Vin Diesel accepted that? Who knows? But
money,
it was a gamble that worked.
Because they wrote him a check for $54 million and said you got 3 words. That's what
So I don't know how accurate that number is because there's also reports saying 54 mil was his earnings for the entire year. And there are some that are straight out saying 54 mil was his earnings for this movie.
Did a Fast and Furious movie come out that year?
No, so Fast and Furious 6 came out 2013, and Riddick came out the year before as well in 2000.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
I don't
right.
doubt that Vin Diesel would have been a sought after name in the industry, as surprising as that is. But like, I think they were saying Bradley Cooper only made probably like 1 to 2 mil.
What?
That was off one article that I read.
Oh,
So Vin Diesel made more than him.
Oh, Vin Diesel destroyed Bradley Cooper.
what? That's not. But yeah, like
Sorry,
I do. I'll let you go. I'll be quick. I remember talking. I remember us talking to someone about this. That we looked at the amount he made, and it was a lot. And I remember there's like some interview of Vin Diesel trying to make out like he put so much into just saying 3 words. Like,
nah, bro.
Oh, yeah. And then I had to put more energy into the next one. I'm Groot. Like,
Those some reports claim
wow.
it might have been closer to 5 million. The actor Bradley Cooper reportedly only made 1.5 million for his work in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Yeah, but like they do something to his voice in like, you know, Infinity War and all that. So it's the point, it doesn't even need to be Vin Diesel anymore. So
100%.
Still make a lot of money off that?
Do you reckon he even comes in to do the
Maybe
movies
it's
anymore? Like, if they already have the recording of him saying "I am Groot," like, does he need to come in?
Surely there are like sound engineers and stuff who can just like change the pitch, change the tonality, and all that kind of stuff. Like
he'll probably still get paid, but maybe they paid him 54 mil, and that's a 10-movie contract. Like, as in maybe it's like,
how the heck?
Well, I'm saying maybe it's like you pay him straight up front. Maybe, I mean, anyway. But we also take it for granted. Like, I know I said this before, but like we just mentioned, Fast and Furious 6 came out the year before, Riddick, and then all this sort of stuff. Like,
he was still riding high from the pacifier whenever that was released.
2006 or whatever. He was very well known, and like like Fast and Furious 6 was really. I mean, I should know. I watched the first 5 in 4 days. That's the first time I've ever seen them.
You're
the last 4 days. Like 5 is when like he's really starting to get into the swing of things. You know what I mean? So like by 6, he's rolling. Guardians comes out.
Your family now, bro.
Come on, bro. I got a space. I got a space at the dinner table.
What I wanted to comment on is the fact I remember in the movie thinking I could hear Vin Diesel very clearly. Like whenever I heard Groot talk, like it was just Vin Diesel. But when I heard Bradley Cooper talk as Rocket Raccoon, I couldn't tell it was him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It was a very good performance.
Yeah.
For me, it was the opposite. I didn't know. I didn't even know that it was Vin Diesel. But then when it got pointed out, I was like, oh, how can you miss it?
Yeah. Okay.
But I completely agree with Rocket. I didn't. If you had told me Bradley Cooper, again, I think it's one of those things. It's like once you find out that it's him, you can sort of hear the little things in his voice that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's him.
Yeah.
But on first listen, you're like, no, that's completely different.
And I saw raw footage, and like there wasn't much done to his voice. Like that was just his acting. So yeah.
Which I guess might be the point, because you don't want just this little psycho raccoon just sounding like Bradley Cooper in Let's Start.
Yeah, true.
Have you guys seen movies like Goodfellas and Casino, like those type of movies?
I've seen Goodfellas, yeah.
You know, not Robert De Niro, not Ray Liotta, the other guy, the small guy, he's got like a Weasley type voice. Yeah, Bradley Cooper modeled his voice on that guy. So like a little angry Italian.
Right.
Yeah.
So apparently, I also just on the note of Rocket, I remember reading an article when this movie came out that like the cast of the movie, so like the cast of the movie being Zoe Saldana, Chris Pratt, whoever else was involved in the scenes, I don't really remember. They were actually really upset that Bradley Cooper was actually in the movie because he didn't do any of the motion body capture. That was actually James Gunn's brother. We mentioned this off the podcast, who played one of the Ravagers. So he's I think his name's Sean Gunn off memory.
He did some, and then some. Josh mentioned earlier a Russian guy did some as well. Or something.
He did that was for Groot, wasn't it?
Oh right, sorry.
Yeah, that was for Groot.
Yeah.
So Sean Gunn did so you got to imagine you're acting on a movie, and then somebody's there doing all the scenes with you. But then, like when you watch the movie, that's not actually because he was doing the lines as if he was Rocket to help them with their acting.
Yeah.
When they were filming, but he wasn't actually in the movie. So like to them, that would be so weird.
Yeah.
Because like they'd be hearing this voice for Rocket the whole time, and then when you get to the movie, it's not actually him. Like it'd just be weird.
I remember that actually. I remember Batista saying like, "Oh, I don't remember Bradley as Rocket. I remember."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean Gunn. Oh, I forgot
Yeah.
Batista was in the movie. We didn't even talk about that.
There was a big thing about that. Yeah. Well, that's fair. It's funny we were talking about wrestlers earlier, but yeah, what did you
So,
think of Batista in this movie? Yeah.
apparently, I'm just skimming through an article. Apparently, it says that Vin Diesel actually regularly came in to voice act for Groot, which I don't know how. But Bradley Cooper didn't, and he probably did it like off-site or something.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah,
That was
which
the
is
reason why that was sort of, well, this guy doesn't even rock up here.
apparently they didn't even like know him hardly. Like it was almost like. Anyway, I don't want to get into the new Lion King remake because I'll get fired up. But it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So it's like Donald Glover and Beyonce. They sang "Can You Feel the Love Tonight." They weren't even in the same studio, which just
that makes me hate that movie.
That gets all of my veins pumping because, like, how can you
That
sing a
makes
song
sense.
like that?
Why it's so detached? Why this?
How can you sing a song like that? Which, well, anyway, what does it matter? It's my wedding song. Josh sang it at my wedding. I don't want to get into it, but how can you sing a song like that? And not
It wasn't even night.
Studio.
It wasn't even night in the
It was
movie.
probably day. They were probably in their apartment in the middle of the day.
Yeah, but at least Josh wasn't in another room when he sang it. You know, like
Yeah, true. I
And it was
FaceTimed
nighttime when
myself
Josh
in
sang
to sing
it.
at Chansy's wedding.
Anyway, sorry, Josh, go on. I don't want to talk about that movie anymore.
Apparently, so Bradley Cooper still got rigged up. So, like, he still wore some sort of mocap to capture his rough movements.
Oh, okay.
But
it wasn't
the
on
main
site.
mocap
With Sean Gunn.
was Seth Gunn. I didn't realize that that's
Seth Gunn.
the Ravager that it was. He's like the second in command one.
Yeah, and he ends up getting the spoilers. He ends up getting the fin. After spoilers, Yondu dies.
Because he's in Gilmore Girls, yeah, that guy. He's like, anyway, if anyone's seen Gilmore Girls, he's, sorry, we're going deep in this podcast for people I enjoy. Fast and Furious 5, Gilmore Girls.
In the first film, Polish actor Christian Godlewski did the mocap for Groot. So he basically just wore a blue spandex suit and a Groot head on top of his head. And that's how people would measure
Can I
him.
just say, going back to Batista for a second, Azita, you mentioned how do we feel about him? I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or let's just say superhero movies in general, so DC movies too, blah, blah, is actually a really good avenue for WWE superstars to go into acting because it's like you don't have to be like an amazing actor as far as like pulling off like believable roles. You can do a role that's kind of like quirky and a bit odd and like what Dave Batista was like, where he's a bit like he's supposed to be jacked, like it's not normal. Like Batista's so big, that it's like you couldn't wear a shit. Like go and watch that Stuber movie, which Malika apparently likes. Like the dude's too big to be wearing a t-shirt and driving in a car. Like it's not believable. Whereas in this, like he just has no shirt on and he's jacked, so like it works. So I think like he picked a really good avenue to go into movies in. That's what I thought about it. So
was he chosen, or did he choose to be? Did he audition?
I think they approached him. Yeah, I remember reading that James Gunn approached him for the role, but I don't know. Yeah,
I just want to know how Dave Batista is like when you think of who do I want to play this? Oh yeah, that one wrestler guy. I want him.
Do you guys know that Jason Momoa was originally considered before Dave Batista?
For Drax.
Really?
Wow.
For Drax.
That's interesting.
What would you think about that? If like in a Mandela universe?
I think he could pull off that whole,
I think
kind
it
of
would work.
that blunt kind of just blunt, like doesn't really understand jokes and stuff like that.
I think he's too heartthrobby though. That's my opinion. Like it's more like he's at an age now where he's like, okay, it's Dave Batista. He's jacked out of his brain. Like, cool.
He's a dad.
Like, I think that would have taken away from it. Like if you had Chris Pratt, who was supposed to be like this heartthrob, he'd just gone on this bend, just getting jacked out of his brain, and it's like, wow, Chris Pratt looks amazing. He's hot now. If you had him and then you had Dave Batista, I think like if you had Drax and Drax with Jason Momoa, I think people would only care about how ripped Jason Momoa is, especially if he had like the long hair and all that sort of stuff. Like, I don't know. That's what I think if I was to watch it. But.
Yeah.
Side note: apparently, Dave Batista was broke at the time.
Really?
He hadn't worked in 3 years. He'd gone broke from wrestling, and he was desperate to get a job. He got an agent 2 weeks before he got the audition for Guardians.
Wow,
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's hectic.
Now he's rolling.
Yeah. Like, if I'm being realistic, it wasn't a hard role. He just had to say one-liners pretty much. But, I guess for me, when I saw it, I was like, it was a different side to Batista I hadn't exactly seen before. So I was pretty down for it.
So they were considering just on, I'm only going to call out the ones that are relevant to this movie. They were considering Jensen Ackles as Star-Lord. I don't know if that's how you say his last name.
What?
Jensen Ackles as Star-Lord. They were considering Danny DeVito as Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, it's
I
very
could see
good,
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot as Nebula.
Oh.
Another Fast and Furious shout out.
Uh, Christopher Meloni as Ronan the Accuser. I don't know who that is.
He's the Law and Order SVU guy.
Ah, true.
Really? Wow, that would have been dope.
You might
Gina-
not have seen the show, but yeah, continue.
Gina Carano as Gamora.
Another Fast and Furious. What? As Gamora? What? Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, what the
Vin
heck?
Diesel was actually considered for Drax.
I could see that.
Oh, I could see
And
that
James Earl Jones was considered for Groot.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because he's the voice. Yeah.
Oh,
And then,
Groot.
oh, hang on.
Beyond the Bright Lands.
Michael Fassbender as Star-Lord.
No, he's too serious. No,
Yeah.
he's too serious.
And he was too.
Wow.
Was he? I'm pretty sure he was too big.
You reckon?
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
He's a short guy.
No, I mean like charisma.
What do you mean charisma? Like
Was he famous at the time? Did he have a reputation for other roles already?
Magneto.
Magneto.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Another Marvel movie. Because Marvel's thing is getting guys that, like, for their main character, aren't already tied to other big roles, especially in the superhero universe.
Unless it's Chris Evans.
Human Torch wasn't. He was part of a group of 4, so it wasn't. And he's the exception. Okay.
Jack Black as Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah,
I
I
can
could
see that too.
I think it would have been too much, though.
Yeah.
And
Like, it
then
would have been, like, over the top.
they were one of the, aside from Jason Momoa as Drax is the top one, but the other one they were considering is John Krasinski as Nova.
Ooh.
I want him as Mr. Fantastic, so I'm glad.
Yeah,
that
he'll
he
get
did
it. He'll get it for
Oh, true.
sure. He'll get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's already a done deal.
That was a whew. Yeah, it's funny you said the name Danny DeVito and Jack Black, that you just don't see Bradley Cooper along those
In that-
lines.
yeah, right.
Like,
But I will say this, like Bradley Cooper and just Rocket Raccoon in general has aged really well since the movie
Yeah.
came out. Like,
Yeah.
like he's got like his character development, but then also like him in Infinity War and in Endgame was just brilliant. Like I think like it worked well when teamed with a bunch of other people. So it's like even the lines like "I'll get that on," like stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like that stuff just works really well. So yeah.
What do we? Sorry, Robin.
Oh, nothing. I was just thinking. But
I
yeah,
was gonna say. So for me with this movie, honestly, I find the villain brings it down for me a lot, and I understand.
forgot to say
Like,
that.
yeah, look, I understand. Like, you don't always need a big, awesome villain, but there was just nothing about the villain that got me. Like, I'll be honest, even though Thor Ragnarok is my favorite Marvel movie, I won't say Hela is the best villain out there, but Kate Blanchett chews the scenery. She loves what she's doing, and I still find her scenes interesting and exciting. But I find this guy is very just dull to me, and there's just nothing to him.
No
It
impact.
felt very disjointed. Like I didn't
Yeah,
like. It almost felt like the aim in the movie wasn't to defeat the villain. It was
Yeah.
more, which I guess kind of makes sense because this movie was more about bringing together the team as a team, and then it was, and we've got to throw a villain in there, I guess.
Mm.
But like there wasn't really, aside from Drax, who had like an actual vendetta against him, the rest of them were just like, oh yeah, I guess like Gamora was more so about going against Thanos. Chris Pratt was just sort of there.
yeah.
Groot and Rocket were there for a bounty. So like you did sort of feel disconnected from Ronan, I guess.
Yeah, to the point, like now they're talking a lot more about the Kree and how the Kree are going to be this big thing in the MCU. And I almost have to remind myself, like, oh yeah, that guy was a Kree in Guardians. There was a big Kree thing that was apparently happening, but I don't think about that. I don't really remember him that much besides Chris Pratt dancing and being like, "Dance off, bro!" Like he just. That's
Just
it.
to clear up, so he was just an extremist for the Kree, like a fanatic. He wasn't really
Yeah.
part of their society. Is that
He was pissed off about the peace treaty that they signed.
Yeah,
Where's
that's what
Xander?
it is.
Xander?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if you watch Captain Marvel, which shout out, I think it's actually a good movie. There's a lot more
Great.
explanation. there's a lot more explanation for him in that because like it goes into a lot.
That's true.
Like
he's just as dull in that part.
Just like the movie.
Oh my god! Shut up. Is what you're saying, David? If we get to phase 2 recap and I get pick number 1 in the villains category and I take Ronan the Accuser, you're going to be a bit upset.
You do you. All right. I'll just. I won't be happy. But
Actually, if I can just touch on something really, really quick before Chance goes back. So back to the phase 1 recap where we were picking our weapons and stuff, and Malika chose Thanos'
chair.
We got to see that in this movie.
Yeah, true.
That came to mind. I was like, "Oh, bro, that's
That
sick
was
chair."
Malika's freaking weapon.
Also, it was floating, wasn't it? Was it not floating?
Yeah,
in this
it
movie?
was.
I think that's all it did. But hey, Malika knows more about it than I do.
I'll add on to my points about Ronan because I want to hear what Chansey liked about him. So you liked Ronan, did you?
So there was one scene in the movie which the first time you see him where he basically does this weird ethnic cleansing scene where he like takes that guy, does this weird blood transfusion thing.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Like that was dope. We were like,
Yeah,
okay, this is sick.
Yeah.
I think what I liked about him was like what you're saying, David, and I get why people don't like him, but to me, I liked him because he wasn't that crazy. So, like, because it added to the whole Thanos storyline to me. Like, I was like, wow, this guy is like it showed, number one, you're an idiot for going against Thanos, but number two, like, how powerful Thanos actually is. Like, he's really controlling what's going on here, sort of thing. So, but yeah, like, I didn't hate him. Maybe I just haven't watched enough galactic movies to know what proper villains are supposed to be like.
Maybe for me, it all comes down to character, as in, like, you don't have to, but just have some fun with it. Like, I don't like the, I'm Ronan and I'm going to come for you, Thanos, and all that. I'm just like, what I liked about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with Ego was, yeah, he was an evil, big CGI dude, but he had those bits where he's like, excuse me, I'm going to go take a whiz. You know, like just those fun little bits where you're like, oh, you actually have a character, but I just found...
Which is probably why, after them looking at the movie, they decided to cast a big-name actor as the villain in Kurt Russell as Ego. Like, they probably looked at it and went, okay, like, we need to have somebody who can actually act in this role. Like, I'm not saying the acting of Ronan in this movie was good, because it wasn't. No. I think the idea of him as a villain is what I liked, because it's like, in people's origin story movies, I think if you throw a big villain in as the first villain, it takes away from the origin of the characters. Whereas this, it was like Ronan is like not that memorable. So it's like, okay, I leave the movie going, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy because they had this whole, we're coming of age, forming a team type thing. So it's like in the second one, they already had that. So like they had to actually face a proper villain, which is Ego. So anyway.
Well, here's the thought. What if the Collector was a bad guy? Like, we'll talk about him more, but he was interesting.
He's dope. He's dope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he was only in it for such a short time, and he left a mark.
Was it Dark World where we talked about where we don't really know what we classify him as? Because he did, like you just said it, like he seems like he'd be a good villain, just judging in this movie by off how he treated the chick and how he's basically just got imprisoned a bunch of random people. But it just seems like he's just a hoarder, but we don't really know.
Well, like I think, sorry, because I clicked off just to see the actor's name for Ronan. Are we talking about the Collector?
Yeah.
So I feel like with him, especially when going back and rewatching it, I was sort of a little bit disappointed that they did just sort of almost do nothing with him.
Yeah.
Because it was like when he sort of first came in, what movie was it? And they go and deliver Dark World. And you're like, oh, okay, this guy's something. And then they revisit him in Guardians, and you're like, okay, they're starting to build him up a little bit more. You sort of see the sadistic side of him. And you're like, okay, this guy could be a bit of a player later on, especially he seems a little sinister, and he's like, oh, 5 left or 5 more in the Dark World, all that kind of stuff. So obviously he's trying to hatch a plan. And I get that in the grand scheme of things, like he has to face Thanos and nobody's going to win that. But I don't know. I guess I was now, I guess in retrospect and looking back on it, I was like, oh, I'm kind of upset that they didn't really do much with him. Because I feel like in agreeance or whatever the word is, I think they could have done a lot with him, and I think they could have made him like a really different sort of villain.
With from my point of view on Ronan, again, my only comparison to like my reference point was Earth's Mightiest Heroes, And I did mention how the Guardians there were kind of like space police, and I liked it in the cartoon, but I liked the very different tone and the way it was delivered in this one being its own kind of thing. I'm not sure how it is in the comics, but I liked the way, even though it was different, it worked for the movie and this universe. Whereas Ronan in the cartoon was a lot more, I don't know, he was like, Ronan the Accuser was like literally a judge, and he'd like just he'd stuff you up. Whereas in this one, he seemed like Ronan the Angsty or something. Like, it was just I don't know.
Only listens to Panic at the Disco.
Yeah, it's
like the actual name doesn't really fit what he is in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
does that
Nah,
make
not at
sense? It's like it's like when you'd read things in history of like it's George the
Jungle.
George of the Jungle. Wow, we should review George of the Jungle. That'd be great. And number 2, and Inspector Gadget 1 and 2 while we're at it.
shout out Brendan Fraser.
Who was
Come
only
on
number one.
come on the podcast,
Who
Brendan Fraser,
severely needs to be cast in the Marvel Universe.
as Star Wars.
As George of the Jungle.
They didn't even say- He's in the collector. He's in the collector's store. So where am I even going? Okay, so well, I don't even know what I was talking about.
Ronan
Okay,
the
Ronan the
so-
Accuser. His
Ronan the
name doesn't
Accuser,
fit.
yeah. So, like in the movie, it's like when he's gonna go to a planet, and I think you see this more in Captain Marvel. They're like, "Don't do it. You're gonna get accused." But accused of what? Like, what's actually? He's just gonna blow your planet up. Like, what does that even mean? So it's kind of like it doesn't really fit. Like you said, Zeta, he's more of a judge in the comics and all that sort of stuff, and he's judging you for sins and penalties and like. You've done this, so it's gone against the Kree way, so I'm going to accuse you of that, and I'm going to kill you and stuff. But in this movie, it's just like, I hate you. You're
Bad
accused.
line. You're gonna get accused.
I like if there was anything going for him in this movie in comparison to the cartoon. In the cartoon, he was more of just like an enforcer. So there wasn't much to his story. In this one, he did have a story, but again, I think like David said, I agree. There wasn't much impact for that.
Well,
but I think it's overshadowed anyway by the Guardians. Like that was the
well,
first
it's to the point, and it's unfair to compare Thanos, but like you don't know. Like, look, you don't know in regards to Ronan who the Kree are. You don't really care about this Kree Xandar conflict. But with Thanos, you go into Infinity War, and you don't know anything about his backstory yet, and they're able to show enough of his backstory. And the reason why you're able to care about it because Thanos cares about it. You can tell it's not, I'm going to destroy you because this happened. He's sitting there and he's actually like remorsefully thinking about everything that's happened and you feel it. And I know it's unfair because like that's a long way down the track. And even you can say the Thanos in this is not even the Thanos that we see. But it's just, I don't care about Ronan's story. I feel sorry for the guy, but maybe in real life I'll feel sorry for him. But in regards to the movie, I don't care about the Kree. I don't care about what he's gone through. I don't care that Thanos is like treating him like a boy. I don't care about that.
Yeah,
I
he
do
calls
like
him boy.
his big hammer thing, but that's pretty cool. I care about that.
Well, it's like a judge, I think. Was what
Yeah.
Shout
I
out
think
to the hammer.
shout out to the weapons for the phase 2 recap. I think to be fair, David, you said, "Oh, maybe this isn't the Thanos that we see later." Well, technically it is because in Endgame, here we go back to this exact moment. So
Ooh, I actually have a
That's
technically,
true, yeah.
this is the Thanos that we see later.
Okay,
bit of
yeah,
a-
you got me there. You got me there.
Easter egg.
Cut.
Oh,
Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
It's all good. A bit of an Easter egg on that. So both James Gunn and Joss Whedon had no idea where the MCU was going in regards to the whole Infinity thing. So that's why, I think we talked about it, how Thanos was so different in Avengers 1.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's like the actual starting point of where we get the Thanos that we get in Infinity War and Endgame. Like, James Gunn had no idea what they were up to. So he kind of had to set up a cameo for Thanos and the Infinity Stones in this movie towards what geared up to be what we got in Endgame and all that, and Infinity.
But could you still say, like, even though they eventually resolved and be like, look, Thanos by this point was still an angry type guy but by the time he hit Infinity War, everything he went through made him a lot more sympathetic. But we can still basically say at this point they were trying to go off what they were doing in the first Avengers, which is he's a ruthless dictator. He's a ruthless, soulless type dude. Yeah, they were more, yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't... You didn't think you were going to have that whole... I guess... What was it? There wasn't a show to Thanos' vision yet.
No.
outside of power gain.
Yeah.
There was actually some kind of deep and questionable morals to it, but there was purpose.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was the character is played by this guy. I think his name's pronounced Jimon Honsu. I forgot the name of the character. He's the guy that Star-Lord says, "Oh, I'm Star-Lord." He goes, "Who?" You know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that before the movie was coming out, the actor was saying how he wanted to play the role because he was upset that his kids didn't have like superhero toys that represented the African American culture and all that. So I was really expecting to play this full-on like a top-notch superhero. But I was a bit shocked when I found out he was just playing a henchman. But I still think he played the role well. But yeah, it was just interesting. Yeah.
His kids obviously didn't watch Thor because Heimdall's in it. So
Did he get a cool toy? Did I?
I don't know. Did he?
Surely Heimdall got a cool toy. He opens the damn Bifrost. Surely he was a toy.
He deserves one if he did it. Yeah, that's true.
Also, what's his name? The guy who plays Falcon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. True.
Anthony
We actually already
Mackie.
had that. Yeah. Wait, did this come out before Winter Soldier? Yeah. No, maybe.
No, it came out after. didn't it?
After,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It was the same year though, wasn't it? No.
The filming time is very similar. Like I think I heard this one was around the same time as being filmed the same time as Thor.
Either way, Heimdall's been around for forever at this point. So.
As well as that, Idris Elba's really a superhero to all of us, so he's been around forever. So, should have his own superhero figure in.
My favorite scene in this movie is the prison scene.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I think that was the highlight for this whole movie for me. That's when they all come together. You got a show of, I think, a bit more of Rocket, I'd say. And I like that it was more fun the way they did it. You know, we talked about it, like how Marvel isn't great with doing montages. And I like when Rocket, usually when they're explaining a prison outbreak in movies, like they say one thing and then it cuts to another scene where they're getting the thing.
It actually happens.
In this one, they just straight up do it, which is good.
Well, I think that's because of what Groot does, right?
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to do this, and that, and then he's already gone and started initiating.
It's really funny in this one.
Can I ask a question on that? Did anybody, like, obviously it's a funny moment and blah, 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 but did any of you see it coming that, like, Rocket just wanted the leg for a laugh? Like, did you actually all think that he wanted the leg? Like,
I thought he wanted the leg, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then it's an ongoing joke.
Because that's like an all-time moment in the movie. Like, when he does that, like, he just wanted to see what his reaction was to the guy hopping around.
And then that guy's eye.
Oh man.
No, I agree. And the thing is with the whole prison, it's like it's a scene, right? I get, but there's so many scenes that happen in that whole little section of the movie. Like where they sort of stick up for Gamora, where sort of you do, I think, not for the first time, but Groot really stands out, especially when he goes up and sort of takes down the big bully in the prison.
Yeah.
You had the interactions between Chris Pratt and that one sort of officer who takes his music and all that kind of stuff. There's like heaps of little moments that build up to this sort of one big section. And I think it's kind of hard to overlook. It's kind of hard to put any other section of the movie, I guess, on par with that one section of the movie.
I think we said it. Yeah. What worked well in this movie, they weren't building character for individuals. They were building character for the group as a whole.
Yeah.
That worked really well in this one. I did think, though, when they got to Nowhere, some parts in that kind of dragged. For
Yeah, that's when I started to drop off a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like the scene in the casino where, like, we get a bit more about Rocket and, how he feels about things. But I don't know. I didn't, like, it sounds bad, but I don't really care about the whole... I like when Drax has to go after Thanos in regards to the whole killing the family. But again, it sounds like I really hate Ronan. It's not that I hate Ronan. I just don't feel the whole emotion of, because like Ronan doesn't really care that he's killed the family. He's like, oh, maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
I'm not going to remember this anyway.
Yes. But what are you going to say, Robin?
Just a quick comment that the third Guardians, one of the things they'll focus on is Rocket's story, like the whole experimentation, like who did it to him.
Yeah, I feel like
Dude.
I heard somewhere that they're going to explore
Brandon
that. Sorry. George of the Jungle.
He was experimented in the jungle by George.
There's a deleted scene in the first movie.
Turns out Rocket Raccoon is the first trial for Wolverine.
That's actually cool, but like, that's actually.
They're going to take him to whatever that guy's base is. Can't remember his name.
William Stryker.
Yeah, William Stryker's base.
Oh, I haven't had William Strike in so long. I'm gonna go watch X2. Sorry, keep going. Go
What
on,
are we talking about?
I don't know. George of the Jungle.
Once we get on George of the Jungle.
You heard
you were
something?
talking about Ronan.
No, you were talking about the experimentation of Rocket, and then you started.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I was gonna say they're gonna explore that in George of the Jungle 3, but we really need to get off this train. They're gonna explore it in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's the rumor. They're gonna have like the person who created Rocket, and
that was it.
Brendan Fraser might be. You know, we can have an online petition for that. We'll talk about that after the podcast. But
I mean, at this stage, Rocket is sort of the only one who you need to really look into, right? Because like Chris Pratt, obviously, Star-Lord, we know how he came about. Gamora, we sort of know enough, and we're not sure if she's going to be alive in Volume 3.
Oh yeah, it's a different version of Gamora.
Alive, but yeah, are we gonna? Do we need to see anything? Because we've already sort of seen how she came up. Aside from actually, like how Chance was saying, they skipped the whole middle section of Star-Lord, which I agree with. I think that was fine. Gamora would sort of be the same thing. Like we saw how she was when she was little. I don't think we need to see her whole build up into being an assassin or whatever. Groot is a tree, and Drax.
I don't know, man. Like, where did the tree come from?
Who planted it? Was it Brandon Fraser?
Did you not see Lord of the Rings 2?
Is that the tree that Brendan Fraser has to watch out for?
Oh man, I hate this podcast.
That's the tree that he lives in. Groot's the tree that he lives in.
Watch out for that tree. I am Groot. Oh god.
Oh, freaking hell.
Oh my god.
What was I saying?
Who else can we focus on? Yeah.
Rocket's the only one who sort of hasn't been explored as a character.
And he's kind of like, they joke about it in Infinity War. He's like kind of the other leader in the group. Like, he's very resourceful.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Also, coming off that whole thing about Gamora, I know this is a bit away from Guardians, but I was of the understanding in Endgame when, you know, the whole snap happened, they're all gone. So everyone that came through the portal is gone. So how could Gamora still be alive?
It was a different, wasn't it her from a different time?
Yeah, but from Thanos' time. But Thanos went. So, like, when Tony snapped, it was like, oh, all those dudes who came from the other time, they're all gone now.
I think okay, so the way I took it, I mean, this is maybe going ahead to Endgame podcast, but like, the way I took it was like, it's a heart thing. So he's snapping, going, everything that's like, these guys that are evil, I want to obliterate them from being evil. So like, he wants to get rid of them. So when he snaps, it's not like he's snapping specifically and being like, I want to get rid of everybody that's come through the portal or whatever. I think he's snapping being like, I want to get rid of Thanos and what he's done. And so like, I don't think Gamora would be included in that because like, she had a change of heart to be like go against him, sort of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. It's more of a heart snap,
that makes sense. But like, imagine there's like one of the aliens with like actual morals, like one of the crazy aliens. He's just like, he doesn't want to be there
for my family.
It's like an after credit scene, and he's just like, he's just like standing around me, like, what do I do with this?
Turns out that alien is also played by Jimon Honsu or whatever.
He finally got an action figure.
You'll be break, man.
But can I ask a question on that? Because I guess it's kind of relevant with this movie because obviously the time period they go back to in Endgame is this movie. If somebody dies in the Marvel universe from now on, can they just go back in time to a different alternate universe and bring them back to this universe and they're alive again? Is that like, can that happen? Because obviously, if like,
I feel like we'll find out with Gamora.
I guess technically, but I feel like there'll be that whole, like, Doctor Strange being like, no, we can't alter time, we can't go and.
True.
Yeah, right. Because I was just going to say, just go and get Uncle Ben, because then we can finally find out who is cast as Uncle Ben.
Go and get Tobey Maguire, who also severely needs to be
Wow,
recast.
imagine if Tobey Maguire was cast as Uncle Ben. That would be interesting.
I'm telling you, they need to make that happen.
Or Brendan Fraser,
Yeah,
either one.
to your point, I guess, yeah, technically they could do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But,
I feel like, yeah, with Doctor Strange, I guess, heading up the new Avengers,
multiverse too.
Right,
Isn't
Yeah,
his
Multiverse of
movie about the
Madness.
multiverse? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he'll sort of be like the one who's like, no, we can't, because it'll mess with the timelines and it'll mess with time and space. And
Yeah, hopefully we'll see consequences of something of people screwing up.
Typical Cumberbatch, no fun.
Oh yeah, you guys didn't rate Doctor Strange.
It's alright.
What's his name?
have we
Flipping
done Doctor Strange?
Oh yeah, Phase
Oh.
3.
thin guy. The guy that raises
Yondu.
Yondu. Let's talk.
What do we think of him?
Yondu?
Michael
I
Rook
like
is
Yondu.
great. Michael Rook is really good. I know you say you don't like him in you feel nothing for him in the second one.
Who said that? You're not saying that to me, are you?
Yeah.
I did not say that.
Oh, just his funeral because you said his funeral
I
just
just said
dragged
his
out.
funeral was too long because I don't have enough emotional connection to him for him to care. I didn't say I don't feel anything in regards
Oh,
to
okay,
him.
all right.
I like Yondu.
That's the way I understood it.
Are there any funerals in the MCU that you enjoy, David? Like, have you
I don't
enjoyed an
enjoy per se, but I appreciate Toad.
Tony Stark's funeral way too long. Too many characters. Too many people.
Tony Stark's. Is there any other funeral?
Spoiler, by the way. Tony Stark dies.
Well, technically, Thor: The Dark World is one big funeral, but yeah, that's fine.
I hold Tony's funeral in higher regard, but that's because we've had so many movies to earn that funeral.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Yondu, right? We see in this movie, like, I don't really get the father vibe. I get the vibe of he's like the dodgy uncle that's using you for his own benefit.
Yeah.
That's what I get him as, that vibe. So, and that's a fine vibe for this movie. But for the next one, it's like, I'm your father. And it's like, we got to immediately go, oh my gosh, Yondu was his father. And like, I believe that because at the time, Chris Pratt had just lost his dad and he was conveying the emotion of what he was going through. So I
Wow,
believe
deep cuts.
from Chris Pratt's, I know, I wouldn't expect it.
I didn't know that.
David.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
So when
it's
like
a very
Chris,
big contrast.
yeah, so when Chris Pratt's like, you know, up there with Yondu, he's like, Yondu, no, I believe that. But when it's the whole thing of he may have been your dad, but he ain't your daddy, or like all that sort of stuff, I'm just like, okay, like. And then when it's like he's reunited with, I don't know what they call it, the Ravagers or whatever, and Sylvester Stallone's like, oh yeah, he's back with us, you know, and all that. It's just like, I just don't feel anything. Like maybe I'm just a heartless person.
Yeah, I actually don't mind both. I know it's very different, like the weird, creepy uncle towards. Oh, not creepy.
It's a bit creepy.
The exploitive uncle towards the caring dad. I do kind of like it because it's. I guess it's Marvel's thing, development, but I do get what you're saying, but I don't mind it.
I just think it's just not completely, like, it's not developed enough. Like, I don't mind the transition. It's just not. It's the same thing with Nebula in this movie. In this movie, her and Gamora hate each other, and then the next one, they try and make Nebula more of a tragic hero, and her and Gamora actually love each other and all that. Like, it works better later on in like Endgame and Infinity War because they've had all this time to develop it. But I just feel it's just too rushed between the two movies. There's just certain, but yeah.
And adding to that, I didn't really like Guardians 2 anyway, so.
Oh, hot take. But I
Hot
agree.
take.
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy Guardians 2. It was alright, but it wasn't. It wasn't. No.
I liked Yondu, personally.
I don't hate Yondu, guys. I actually like Yondu.
Do we think that arrow whistle is overpowered or?
No, I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty
It
OP.
was pretty OP. That one scene where he takes out like 20 people. It was like, where's that been the whole movie? Well, if you can just do that, why have you not done all that? If you can kill a spaceship with an arrow, where's that been?
Responsibility.
Obviously.
How does it work? That's my question. I get the whistle. Like,
I'll show you.
Alright, don't forget
Just like
that.
that.
You gotta add the mohawk and you're good.
What's
Okay,
more
yeah, so
OP?
is it all sort of joined up here, and that's why it all
Yeah.
is it all sort
It's-
of a mental thing?
Yeah, it's connected neurology.
Doesn't
does he
even
need to whistle?
Can he just think about
Oh
it?
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because it's like he like changes his pitch and it's like, oh yeah, he's making it go left and right. But if it's all up here, then is that just for show? Like, is that? I mean, it's a pretty good scare tactic, right? Because
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
crap when he starts to whistle. I need to run, but really,
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
could have
He
just.
just likes to whistle.
I don't even need to whistle. I could just.
Yeah, it could be just a theatrical thing, I'd say.
Yeah.
You associate that sound with that arrow and you're like, oh crap, I'm about to die. Apparently, though, it's a nod to his comic book counterpart who uses just a bow and arrow. I don't know if it whistles, but yeah. Like a,
If I could whistle that good, I'd play walk around doing it all the time too. So, David, if you don't pick Yondu as your side character in the Phase 2 recap,
I
I'll be
don't
pretty disappointed.
hate. Oh,
Well,
this is gonna
you
be
better
a
pick
thing.
him, man. To prove it, you better pick Yondu as your
I'm
side
so
character.
glad that we haven't gone viral yet, because I just imagine all the comments being like, "Why do you hate Yondu, David? You're this, David. You're that, David."
How do you know we haven't gone viral?
yeah.
We might be
It's probably-
viral in like the Republic of Chad or something. We just don't know.
Or the Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Republic of
Vin
Chad.
Diesel's watching us
Shout
right
out Vin
now.
Diesel. Vin Diesel, come on the podcast. I'm
Vin
really
Diesel
deep
and
into Fast and
Mark
Furious right
Sinclair.
now. If we could review this movie with Vin Diesel and Brandon Fraser, would be awesome.
What do you think
Dude.
Brendan Fraser's thoughts were while watching this movie?
George.
I could have played a better Star Lord. Did you see me in The Mummy?
Great movies, actually.
To be fair, just as a normal question, like it's sort of,
Back to Guardians.
no, like it's sort of normal, but not
Oh.
really. Like, would Brandon Fraser? Just go with me. It's real legit. Would he be a good Adam Warlock, or who would we cast as Adam Warlock?
Oh,
if
no.
we had to cast him.
Nah, I think if he hits
Actually-
him, he'll be alright.
I think there was someone that his name had been put forward for Adam Warlock. Give me a sec.
There's an
I feel like
Aussie
they-
actor I know that they've
I
said to
felt-
be up. Sorry, Caleb?
I feel like that guy out of what's his name? Out of Aquaman, the villain in Aquaman could have been a good Adam
Patrick
Warlock.
Wilson.
Yeah, he could have been okay.
I just see him as Aquaman's brother. I don't
Okay, if he wasn't in Aquaman, go with me here.
So IMDb on their poll for Adam Warlock casting, I'm only going to say the main names. So Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, which is the guy that plays in Game of Thrones. I can't remember his Jamie. in Game of
Oh,
Thrones.
yeah, I know.
So there's him. There's Tom Hardy.
I could see.
Ooh.
sorry,
Tom Hardy's played too. I love Tom Hardy. He's played too
Yeah,
many
not-
characters.
not
Uh,
Hardy.
Michael
Hardy's
Fassbender is also up there.
Yeah, see, Michael Fassbender could work well as Adam Warlock, I think.
Well,
What about
especially
Zac
since
Efron?
they've trashed the X-Men. And I hope they redo it.
I like Jamie. He's got the look for Adam
Viggo
Warlock.
Mortensen, so Aragon, which ties in
yeah.
well with the whole Ent theme. Matthew McConaughey.
He's a bit too big for me.
No, I want Matthew McConaughey just for all right.
Alright.
Actually, Charlie Hunnam,
Yeah, I can see that.
Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
No, he's
Andrew
in
Lincoln, who is from, I was going to say Last of Us, but it's Walking Dead.
Last of Us, yes.
Deadpool.
Sam Worthington,
Yeah,
Zac Efron.
I want Zac Efron. I think he's got the look.
You know who else
He's a
they
bit
want
on
to play?
the young side. Actually,
So Kit Harington as well is here. They also, on this poll, Mina Massoud, who, if you don't know, is the guy that played Aladdin.
Oh, wow.
I don't mind
Yeah.
that kid, but they're
Not as Adam Warlock.
yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, pretty young. Zac Efron, you reckon? Yeah.
Can you
I
add a
think
poll?
Jamie. Sorry, go.
Can you add Brendan Fraser? Is there a section to add?
I'm pretty sure there is. I'm pretty sure. I don't want to add him because he'd be a landslide and he'd be locked in.
With the Nike shoes.
I, don't,
Be honest, but
I just don't want to lock him in as Adam Warlock when he could potentially be the next Captain America.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
sponsor.
True.
But be honest, but if they said tomorrow, George of the Jungle is now going to be in the MCU, would you question it? I wouldn't. It's like I'll be like,
And I'd send them a link to this podcast saying that we
Yeah, pay us royalties.
initiated this. We did more than say I am Groot. Like
The people in the Dominican Republic are demanding.
Is the talking gorilla going to be there too from George of the Jungle?
What's his name? Ape?
Yeah,
Him and
An
Groot,
ape
they
called
get their
Ape.
own side movie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow, this has gone far too long on George of the Jungle.
I'm pretty sure the bad guy in that was the Sandman in Spider-Man 3. So there is a connection to the
That's true.
The fact that you know that, it makes me feel sick.
Sandman was
Too much
great.
time.
And so was George of the Jungle. Like
What?
pretty notable.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely was. It was the Sandman. I remember now. Yeah.
The
Because
George.
he comes,
Oh, God.
he comes to the jungle. Yeah, okay, I remember. And he falls in the poo. I remember that scene.
That's
Actually.
him, yeah. In number 2, I think he does it again.
Of course he does.
I'm actually questioning which movie have we talked more about?
Guardians or George of the Jungle.
This is just an amalgamation of Fast and Furious, George of the Jungle, a sprinkle of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my.
We'd be the only movie podcast in the world that's ever spoken about George of the Jungle.
Oh. How did we get here?
Oh, no. Adam Warlock, that's how we got here.
I don't know if you guys want to comment on it. I feel like I got to be the Malik of this group. Do you question their power and like it's so inconsistent?
Of who?
Also, like, there's a bit where I'm very confused as to how strong Gamora is, because she like Groot like wraps her up in the in his branches, and then she just breaks out, and then later in the prison, she's just manhandled by like a couple of scrawny little prisoners. I'm a bit confused about that. I'm not sure how strong Drax is supposed to be. He seems like a really strong guy, and then he just gets wrecked by
wrapped
Rhino.
around.
Yeah, and I understand Rhino.
But he was drunk
yeah, that's true.
in that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
He was
No,
drunk
wasn't
in that
Rocket
scene.
drunk? Oh, no, they were both
They're
drunk.
both drunk.
Drunk too. The whole thing with Gamora, I feel like it also comes down to like how tightly was Groot actually trying to hold her.
Yeah, true.
Right. Like I think there's too many variables.
Mm.
Well, there's one, but
To be honest, I couldn't care less about like the physics of all this. Like, it's a fun space movie. Like, just take it.
Also, I want to say this. Do you know the song Pina Colada?
Yeah.
You know, if you love
Getting caught in the rain.
Do you know what it's actually about? I found this out recently.
George of the Jungle.
No, like, so it's about a guy that's cheating on his wife, and he goes to meet up with another chick, and then when he meets up with her, it's his wife, because his wife went and did the same thing. So they went to go cheat on each other.
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, I know. I just
Yeah.
But it's like it changes the movie for me, because I think it's just a nice song about pina colada. But then I listen to it, I'm just thinking about this couple cheating on each other, then they get back together and they drink pina coladas. So I don't know. It's just a random fact.
Which
Is
I
it
guess
a-
is meant to be a romantic thing, but I can see how it hits different.
Is it
Sounds like every rom-com to me.
is it an allusion to what happened between Ego and all his women?
So instead of cheating on one woman, you cheat on all of them.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes.
Just to clarify for anybody listening, Pina Colada is now about her ego had sex with multiple women.
My favorite thing about that was how Zeta was, while he was saying it, he realized and he's like, you're just telling your tone. You were like, is that like a... Oh.
But apparently, there's more to those mixtapes. Like, there's like a message from his
His mum, right?
to
His dad or mum, yeah, mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So final thoughts on the movie. I think that I went and had a look at my my list of what I rated it. It was in I think it was my fourth in the Marvel universe. I rate it very highly. I think it was a great movie. It's one I'll watch over and over.
Well, I guess I'll carry on.
Yeah.
His laptop died.
Okay.
Well, I'm
Oh.
pretty sure he was going to give it a good score.
8.9 out of 10, if you're wondering. Damn, all that George of the Jungle talk.
Yeah, right. We just dragged it on too long. Be like, no more.
Right.
Going off the back of what Shanzi said, I actually had this top 6. In the 6th slot. So again, for me, it's pretty high as well. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's an easy movie to come into, especially even though you know nothing about them. I think it did really well at being able to introduce, but not overwhelming anybody who didn't know. Again, I didn't know anything about him, and I didn't feel overwhelmed just personally when I was watching the film.
Yep.
I think in terms of this movie, I'm gonna rate it. I'm gonna give it like an 8.7 out of 10.
Okay, that's pretty high. Oh, yeah, it's
Well, I mean, it's top 6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But and I might change that number later depending on how I feel about other movies. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about the number out of 10. But I liked everything. I liked sort of how the storyline flowed. I liked the music behind it. I liked getting to know the characters when I first watched it. Yeah, pretty high.
Well, for me, yeah, all right. So yes, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Look, to me, this is like the Avengers, as in it's a quality movie. I like it. I like its style. I like what it goes for. But because it's an origin story, it doesn't go too in depth for me. It doesn't explore the characters enough for me. So because of that, I can't give it more. And I can't say like I enjoy it. I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as much as other sort of films in the MCU that I've mentioned before.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I do appreciate its style. I do appreciate its casting. I like the risks it takes. And yeah. And also, on a side note, George of the Jungle got 57% of Rotten Tomatoes. So.
Which is wildly incorrect.
Yeah, I know. What the heck?
So I have this movie as 9th. It's interesting. I put it above Avengers 1. And I rated Avengers 1 7.7. I'll probably give this a similar 7.7 or maybe an 8. Maybe 7.7. But again, I just respect the fact that he gave us an origin of a group without actually having any origin movies beforehand. And I like that. It was a sci-fi movie that was kind of a different take on what you'd expect from sci-fi genre. And yeah, the big letdown in this for me was Ronan. But the movie has a good place in regards to the galaxy realm, the cosmic realm, adds on to that space aspect. And we're introduced to the stones, which is the crux of the Infinity Saga, and Thanos as well.
Check out George's Jungle. I'm sure it's on Netflix.
Check it out. Thanks for watching.
There's only 3 of us.
Make it work.